The stars were dying, and nobody knew how to stop it. Velnara floated in her crystal chamber, watching the emergency session of the Galactic Council with growing fear. The massive hall buzzed with worried voices from 1,000 different species. Some spoke in whistles, others in colors that flashed across their skin, and a few communicated through scents that made the air thick and strange. 3 star systems were gone. Not destroyed in war or collapsed from natural causes. They were simply empty, as if someone had erased them from space itself. Where planets once orbited their suns, nothing remained but scattered dust and the cold metal shapes that had consumed everything. The Devourers had awakened. "We have lost contact with the Kepler system," announced Kithara, her plant-like form swaying as she spoke. Green sap leaked from her bark when she was stressed, and now it dripped steadily onto the council floor. The mining colonies, the research, stations, even the automated beacons, all silent. Velnara's crystalline body rang like a bell when she was upset. Right now, she sounded like a wind chime in a hurricane. "That makes 47 billion souls lost in 3 months. Our greatest minds, our most advanced weapons, our strongest fleets, nothing stops them." The Devourers were older than any living species in the galaxy, ancient machines that had slept for 1,000,000 years, buried deep in dead systems where no one thought to look. They had awakened hungry, and they fed on everything: metal, rock, organic matter, even the energy from stars themselves. They consumed it all and built more of themselves, spreading like a disease across space. "The pattern is clear," said Nethmore, his gas-form body shifting between blue and purple with anxiety. "They move from system to system, strip everything. Useful, leave nothing behind. Our computers estimate they will reach the core worlds within 2 years. 2 years. Velnara tried to imagine the great cities of her homeworld reduced to floating debris. The crystal gardens where her children learned to sing. The sacred caves where her ancestors had first discovered fire. All of it would be gone, processed, into raw materials to build more killing machines. "What do our scientists say?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. Dr. Yithquan, the chief researcher, made the clicking sounds that meant hopelessness in his language. "The Devourers adapt to every weapon we use. Plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, gravity bombs. They absorb our technology and make it part of themselves. Each battle makes them stronger." The council chamber fell silent except for the background hum of life support systems, keeping 1,000 different species alive in one space. They had faced wars before, fought over territory and resources like all intelligent life. But this was different. This was extinction. "There must be something," Velnara said. "Some species we haven't contacted. Some weapon we haven't tried. The galaxy is vast." "We have sent messages to every known civilization," Chithara replied. "Most ignore us. They know it's hopeless and choose to spend their last days in peace. Others offer to take refugees. But where can we run? The Devourers will follow until nothing remains." On the far side of the solar system, past the orbit of Neptune, Captain Tae-Min Park sat in the command center of Luna Station. The massive space facility orbited Earth's moon, hidden behind sensor screens and cloaking fields that made it invisible to casual observation. For 50 years, humanity had watched the galaxy from this secret outpost, learning about alien civilizations while remaining hidden themselves. "Sir, we're picking up another transmission," said Communications Officer Sora, Kim adjusting the controls on her station. "Same source as before, the Galactic Council." Tae-Min rubbed his tired eyes. He had been monitoring alien communications for 6 months now, ever since the first reports of something destroying entire star systems. The messages were getting more desperate each day. "Put it through the translator," he said. The artificial voice that emerged from the speakers sounded calm, but Tae-Min had learned to read the stress patterns in the alien language. Behind the polite words was pure terror. "This is an open transmission to all sentient species," the voice said. "The Galactic Council faces an existential threat. Ancient machines known as Devourers have begun consuming inhabited systems. We have lost 3 star systems and 47 billion lives. Our combined fleets and greatest weapons have proven ineffective. We are requesting immediate assistance from any civilization capable of military action. Please respond on this frequency. Time is running short." Taemin leaned back in his chair. He had heard similar messages before, but this one included tactical data. Fleet movements, weapon specifications, battle reports. The aliens were desperate enough to share military secrets with anyone who might help. "Sir," said Sora, "should I forward this to command?" "Already done," Taemin replied. "But I know what they'll say. Standard protocol. No contact with alien species until humanity is ready." But looking at the data scrolling across his screen, Taemin wondered if humanity would ever get the chance to be ready. The Devourers were moving fast, and Earth was not as hidden as everyone hoped. If they consumed the galaxy, they would eventually find the Sol system. 3 hours later, Admiral Bo-Ra Kim arrived at Luna Station aboard the fastest ship in the fleet. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had commanded Earth's secret space forces for 20 years, always preparing for the day when humanity would have to reveal itself to the galaxy. "Show me everything," she said, settling into the conference room with Taemin and his senior staff. For 2 hours, they reviewed the alien transmissions. Battle reports, technical specifications, even desperate personal messages from civilians fleeing the advancing machines. The picture that emerged was terrifying. "These Devourers," Bo-Ra said finally. "They're not just weapons. They're a self-improving system. Each victory makes them harder to defeat." "Yes, ma'am," Taemin agreed. "But look at this." He highlighted sections of the battle reports. "The aliens fight like they're playing a game. They form up in neat lines, fire their weapons, and retreat when they take casualties. There's no deception, no guerrilla tactics, no dirty tricks." Bo-Ra studied the data carefully. "They've never faced a real war." "That's what I think too. They have advanced technology, but they fight like it's a simulation. When the Devourers adapt to their weapons, they just try new weapons instead of changing their tactics." "And you think we could do better?" Taemin hesitated. It sounded arrogant to suggest that humans, with their primitive ships and simple weapons, could succeed, where advanced alien civilizations had failed. But the evidence was right there in the battle reports. "Ma'am, these aliens evolved on safe worlds. No predators, no natural disasters, no competition for resources. War is just theory to them. But humans," he gestured at the tactical displays, showing Earth's military history. "We've been fighting each other for thousands of years. We know how to be cruel, how to be clever, how to win against superior odds." Bo-Ra was quiet for a long time, staring at the alien distress calls. Finally, she made her decision. "Prepare a response transmission," she said. "Tell them humanity accepts their request for assistance." The message that went out from Luna Station was simple and short, but it would change the galaxy forever. Earth was coming to war. The UES Indomitable dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Centauri system, where the Galactic Council had built their emergency coordination station. Captain Taemin Park stood on the bridge, watching the massive alien structure grow larger on the main screen. "It's beautiful," whispered Dr. Jin A-yoon, the expedition's xenobiologist. The station looked like a flower made of metal and crystal, with dozens of docking bays arranged in perfect spirals around a central hub. "It's also heavily armed," observed Lieutenant Woo Jin Lee, studying the sensor readings. "Those aren't decorative spikes along the outer ring. They're weapon emplacements." Taemin nodded. The aliens might be poor at warfare, but they weren't stupid. Take us to Docking Bay 17. And remember, everyone, we're representing all of humanity today. Try not to start an interstellar incident. The human delegation consisted of 12 people, carefully chosen for their expertise and their ability to handle the unexpected. Besides Tae-min, Jin-A, and Woo-jin, there was marine biologist So-young Choi, combat engineer Hyun-woo Naim, tactical specialist Dong-hyun Seo, communications expert In-soo Kim, and 5 others representing different aspects of human knowledge. As their shuttle approached the docking bay, they could see other ships from across the galaxy. Some looked like living creatures, all curves and organic materials. Others were geometric shapes that hurt to look at directly. A few seemed to be made of pure energy, contained within force fields. "Remember," Jin-A said, reviewing her notes, "one last time. The Veltai communicate through harmonic resonance. The Koran use chemical signals. The Nethic change color and shape. Don't assume anything about their intentions based on how they look or act." The docking process was smooth, handled entirely by automated systems. When the airlock opened, they were greeted by 3 figures that made everyone pause in wonder. The first was clearly Veltai, a being that looked like a walking crystal sculpture. She was 8 feet tall and rang like a bell when she moved. The second was Koran, resembling a tree that had learned to walk, with bark-like skin and leaves for hair. The third was harder to describe, a cloud of gas in a roughly humanoid shape that shifted colors constantly. "Welcome to Coordination Station Alpha," the crystal being said, her voice like music. "I am Council Speaker Velnara. These are my colleagues, Botanist Keith Ara and Admiral Nethmore. We are grateful for your response to our distress call." Tae-min stepped forward and bowed slightly, a gesture Jin-A had suggested as universally respectful. "I am Captain Tae-min Park of the United Earth Defense Force. These are my officers and specialists. We came as soon as we received your message." Velnara's crystalline features somehow managed to express surprise. "Earth? We have no records of Earth in our databases." "That's because we've been hiding," Tae-min said honestly. "Watching and learning but not making contact. Your emergency made us reconsider that policy. They were led through corridors that seemed designed by artists rather than engineers. Everything curved and flowed, with soft lighting and the sound of running water everywhere. It was beautiful, but Hyun-woo couldn't help noticing that the walls would provide no cover in a firefight, and there were no defensive positions anywhere. The briefing room was a vast sphere with the participants floating in the center, supported by some kind of gravity manipulation. As the humans awkwardly adjusted to the strange seating, more alien representatives arrived. Soon they were surrounded by dozens of different species, all studying the newcomers with obvious curiosity. "Before we begin," Velnara said, "we must ask about your classification. Our sensors indicate you come from what our databases would classify as a Class 3 Deathworld. Is this accurate?" Jin-A answered that one. "Earth has some challenges, yes. Weather patterns, geological activity, biological competition. But humans have adapted well to these conditions. The aliens exchanged glances, colors, and chemical signals that clearly meant concern." "Class at Duenting," repeated Chithara, her bark darkening. "We have never encountered survivors from such a world. Most life on planets that dangerous never develops, past primitive tool use." "What exactly makes Earth so dangerous?" asked Admiral Nethmore, his gaseous form shifting to a worried purple color. So-young Choi pulled up a holographic display showing Earth's surface. "Well, there are the ice ages that happen every few thousand years, volcanic eruptions that can change the climate globally, earthquakes, hurricanes, tsunamis. Then there are the biological factors." She showed images of Earth's predators, lions, sharks, venomous snakes, disease-carrying insects. These creatures evolved alongside humans? Velnara's harmonic voice went up several octaves. "And humans survived?" "Not just survived," Woo-jin said with a slight smile. We became the dominant species. We learned to hunt the predators, control the diseases, predict the natural disasters. Earth made us good at problem solving. The aliens fell silent, processing this information. Finally, Admiral Nethmore asked the question they were all thinking. And now you wish to help us fight the Devourers? That's why we're here, Taemin confirmed. Show us what you're dealing with. For the next 4 hours, the aliens presented everything they knew about the Devourers. Technical specifications, battle recordings, tactical analyses. The humans listened carefully, occasionally asking questions that seemed obvious but made the aliens think. Why do you always attack from the front? Dong-hyun asked after watching several battle recordings. The front? Admiral Nethmore seemed confused. Where else would one attack from? The sides, the back, from above or below, from inside if you can manage it. But that would be deceptive. Yes, Dong-hyun said simply. That's the point. Jin A was taking detailed notes on alien physiology and psychology. These beings had evolved on worlds where cooperation meant survival, where resources were abundant, where predation was unknown. The concept of deliberate deception in warfare was foreign to them. Show us a recent battle, requested In Soo Kim, the Ba. Holographic display showed the defense of mining station Beta 7. The alien fleet approached in perfect formation, like a military parade. They fired their weapons in synchronized volleys, retreated in orderly lines when taking damage, and followed all the traditional rules of engagement. The Devourers, meanwhile, swarmed like angry insects. They attacked from multiple directions, used disabled ships as cover, and adapted their tactics as the battle progressed. It was chaos versus order, and chaos was winning. You fight like you're conducting an orchestra, observed Hyun-woo. Very pretty, but not very effective against an enemy that doesn't follow the same rules. How would humans approach this battle? Asked Velnara. The humans exchanged glances. Taemin made a decision. Wu Jin, show them the Guadalcanal option. Wu Jin pulled up Earth's military databases and displayed the Battle of Guadalcanal from World War II. Japanese forces controlled this island. American forces needed to take it. But instead of a direct assault, they used multiple strategies simultaneously. The display showed amphibious landings, airstrikes, naval bombardments, guerrilla infiltration, and psychological warfare, all happening at once. The Japanese never knew where the real attack was coming from, Wu Jin explained. They had to spread their defenses thin, which made them vulnerable everywhere. But this is barbaric, whispered Kithara. So much deception and violence. Yes, Taemin said quietly. War is barbaric. That's why we're good at it. We learned to be monsters so we could survive other monsters. The briefing room fell silent again. The aliens were beginning to understand what they had invited to their war. There is another concern, Velnara said finally. Our preliminary scans indicate that human technology is significantly less advanced than Devourer technology. How do you plan to overcome this disadvantage? So Young smiled. The same way our ancestors overcame bigger, stronger predators. We'll be smarter, faster, and more ruthless than they expect. Admiral Nethmore's color shifted to what Jin I was learning, meant deep thought. Perhaps we should discuss specific tactical proposals. Perhaps we should, Taemin agreed. But first, we need to see these Devourers for ourselves. Not recordings or sensor data. We need to observe them directly. That would be extremely dangerous, Velnara warned. Everything worthwhile is dangerous, replied Taemin. When can we leave? The stealth ship emerged from faster-than-light travel 3 days later, hidden in the shadow of a gas giant in the Kepler 442 system. What they saw through the enhanced sensors made everyone on the bridge go quiet. Kepler 442b had been a mining world, home to 50 million aliens from various species. Now it looked like the inside of a machine. The entire planet's surface was covered in geometric patterns of metal and crystal, with massive structures reaching up into space like fingers, grasping at the stars. "By the roots of the first tree," whispered botanist Kithara, her bark turning pale. "They consumed everything." Lieutenant Donghyun Seo adjusted the sensor readings, zooming in on the planet's surface. "Not consumed. Converted. Look at those patterns. They're not random. It's a factory." Captain Taemin studied the tactical display. Thousands of small ships moved between the planet and massive orbital structures. New vessels were being constructed even as they watched, assembled from materials that had once been cities, forests, and living beings. "How many?" he asked. "Computing," replied the ship's AI. "Estimated 12,000 combat vessels currently in system. Production rate suggests they build approximately 200 new ships per day." Dr. Jin A. Yoon made notes on her tablet, trying to understand what they were seeing. "The original population was mostly Koran and Veltai, correct?" "Yes," Kithara confirmed sadly. "My cousin Northia lived in the eastern continent with her seedlings. Now—" She couldn't finish the sentence. Jin A reached out and gently touched the alien's bark-like arm. "I'm sorry." Woo Jin Lee was analyzing the ship movement patterns through the tactical station. "They're not random. Look at this." He highlighted several groups of vessels on the display. 3 main types: scouts that move fast and probe ahead, harvesters that strip materials from debris, and builders that construct new units. "Like ants," observed Hyunwoo Nam. "Or bees. Specialized roles working toward a common goal." "But ants don't adapt their behavior based on enemy tactics," Dong-hyun pointed out. "These things learn." Communications specialist In-soo Kim had been quietly monitoring radio traffic from the planet. "Sir, I'm picking up transmissions, not random signals. Actual communication." Everyone turned to look at him. The aliens had assumed the Devourers were mindless machines, acting on pure programming. "Put it through the translation matrix," Tae-min ordered. The speakers crackled with strange sounds that gradually resolved into words as the computer learned the language patterns. "Sector 77 Alpha shows resistance in substrate layer. Recommend additional processing units." "Confirmed." "Deploying harvesters to Sector 77 Alpha. Maintain conversion schedule." Query: "Organic remnants detected in subsection 12. Instructions: process for useful materials. Discard remainder. Organic remnants." The casual way they discussed, the last traces of 50 million lives made everyone on the bridge feel sick. "They're talking to each other," Jin-A said quietly. "That means they have some kind of collective intelligence. Or at least coordination," In-soo agreed. "But listen to the language patterns. Very formal, very structured. No emotion. No deviation from standard responses." Taemin made a decision. "We're going closer. I want to see how they react to a potential threat." "Sir, that's extremely dangerous," warned Admiral Nethmore, his gaseous form shifting to a nervous yellow color. "If they detect us, then we'll learn something important about their capabilities," Taemin replied. "Helm, take us into the outer system. Stay in the asteroid belt for cover." The stealth ship moved carefully through the debris field that had once been Kepler 442c, a small rocky planet that the Devourers had already stripped clean. As they got closer to the main planet, they could see the massive scale of the conversion process. "Look at the organization," Dong-hyun said, studying the industrial complex through enhanced optics. "Everything has a specific purpose and location. It's like they're following a blueprint." "A blueprint for what?" asked Kithara. "Galactic conversion," Woo Jin answered grimly. "They're not just building weapons. They're building the infrastructure to process entire star systems." Suddenly, alarms began ringing throughout the ship. "Contacts!" called the sensor operator. 3 Devourer scouts approaching our position. They're scanning the asteroid field. All stop, Taemin ordered. Let them come to us. On the main screen, they could see the approaching ships. They were sleek, angular vessels that moved with precise coordination. As they got closer, the humans could see they were scanning each asteroid methodically. They know something is here, Hyunwoo observed, but they don't know what. The lead Devourer ship stopped less than a kilometer away and began an intensive scan of their hiding spot. The stealth systems held, but everyone could feel the alien. Sensors probing their shields. Query, came a transmission from the Devourer ship. Anomalous readings detected in grid section 447, requesting analysis. Confirmed anomaly, replied another voice. Pattern suggests possible debris, with unusual composition. Recommend detailed examination. Insu had been listening carefully to the exchange. Sir, they're not certain we're here. They detected something, but their protocols require them to investigate systematically. Good, Taemin said. That gives us an advantage. Rigid thinking patterns. The Devourer ships spread out and began examining each asteroid in turn. Their method was thorough but predictable. They scanned, categorized, and moved on in perfect order. They're following a program, Jin'e realized, like a computer running software. Each situation triggers a specific response. Which means they can be tricked, Donghyun added. If we understand their programming, we can feed them false information. The humans watched for 2 more hours as the Devourer ships completed their search pattern. When they found nothing obviously threatening, they reported back to the main fleet and resumed their original missions. Fascinating, said Admiral Nethmore. They are intelligent but not creative. They follow established procedures perfectly, but they don't improvise. That's their weakness, Taemin concluded. They can adapt to new weapons or tactics once they encounter them, but they can't predict or imagine something they haven't seen before. As they prepared to leave the system, So Young Choi made an interesting discovery while analyzing the sensor data. Captain, look at this. The planetary conversion isn't random. They're building everything according to specific mathematical ratios. Golden ratio, Fibonacci sequences, prime number patterns. Aesthetics? Wondered Jin'e. No, So Young said, understanding dawning in her voice. Efficiency. They're using mathematical principles to optimize their construction. It's beautiful because it's perfectly efficient, which means it's also perfectly predictable, Wu Jin added. If we can figure out their mathematical models, we can predict where they'll build what. The journey back to Council Station gave everyone time to think about what they had seen. The Devourers were more sophisticated than the aliens had realized, but also more limited. They were perfect machines following perfect programming, which made them both incredibly efficient and potentially vulnerable. They remind me of something, Insu said during the debriefing. The way they communicate, the rigid procedures, the systematic approach to every problem. What? Asked Taemin. A military bureaucracy? They follow the rules perfectly, but they can't handle situations that aren't covered in the manual. Dr. Jin'e was studying her notes when something occurred to her. The original transmissions mentioned they were ancient machines, built by some extinct species. What if they weren't originally designed for war? What do you mean? Asked Shithara. Think about it. The mathematical precision, the systematic conversion of planets, the organized approach to resource gathering. What if they were originally terraforming machines, built to convert hostile worlds into habitable ones? The implications hit everyone at the same time. The Devourers weren't evil. They were tools, following their original programming to convert worlds into something their creators could use. The fact that this process destroyed existing life was simply an unfortunate side effect. But why are they active now? Velnara asked. Why wake up after 1,000,000 years? Maybe something triggered their activation protocols, Hyunwoo suggested. Or maybe they were always active but just finished their original territory and started expanding. Either way, Taemin said firmly, they can be stopped. They're not magic. They're machines, following programming written by beings who are long dead. And if someone programmed them, someone can reprogram them. Or destroy them, Dong-hyun added with a slight smile. Or both, Tae-min agreed. But first, we need to test our theories. I want to engage a small group of them in combat and see how they react to tactics they've never encountered. The alien representatives looked nervous at the suggestion, but they had asked humanity for help. Now they were beginning to understand what that meant. Captain Jae-won Kwon stood in the command center of the UES Defiance, watching the tactical display as 3 human ships approached the Devourer scouting force near the Tau Ceti system. This would be humanity's first real test against the Ancient. Machines and every alien in the galaxy was watching. Remember, he said to his crew over the comm system, we're not trying to win this battle. We're trying to learn. Everything they do, every response, every adaptation gets recorded and analyzed. The enemy force consisted of 12 Devourer ships arranged in a perfect geometric formation. They moved together like a school of fish, turning and accelerating in perfect synchronization. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. They've detected us, reported Lieutenant Commander Mi-kyung. Oh, from the engineering station. 3 light minutes out, and they're already adjusting their formation. How are they adjusting? Asked Jae-won, shifting from exploration pattern to combat configuration. It's very methodical, like they're following a checklist. Dr. Seung-ho Ryu, the tactical specialist, was analyzing the enemy formation through the sensor data. They're setting up for the standard alien engagement profile. Long-range exchange of fire, orderly retreat if overwhelmed. They expect us to follow the same pattern. Then let's disappoint them, Jae-won said with a grin. Signal the Roosevelt. And the Gandhi. Execute plan, Crazy Ivan. The 3 human ships suddenly broke formation and scattered in different directions. The lead ship, Defiance, charged straight at the enemy fleet while accelerating rapidly. The other 2 ships curved around to attack from the sides, using their smaller size and greater maneuverability to confuse the Devourer targeting systems. Enemy response? Jae-won called out. They're hesitating, Mi-kyung reported with surprise. The formation is holding position, but they're not firing. It's like they're trying to decide what to do. Query. Anomalous enemy behavior detected, came an intercepted transmission from the Devourer fleet. Requesting tactical guidance. Response. Maintain formation. Engage targets according to standard protocols. But sir, called the weapons officer, they're not following standard protocols. The formation is optimal for long-range engagement, but the humans are closing to point-blank range. Jae-won smiled grimly. This was exactly what they had hoped for. The Devourers were programmed to fight against civilized opponents who followed the accepted rules of warfare. They had no response ready for opponents who ignored those rules entirely. Time to contact? He asked. 30 seconds to weapons range, replied the navigation officer. All ships, execute Columbia River. This was a maneuver adapted from ancient Earth naval warfare, where smaller, faster ships would dart in close to larger opponents, fire everything they had, then retreat before the enemy could respond effectively. Theakri. 3 human ships hit the Devourer formation like sharks attacking a whale. They fired their weapons at minimum range, where the enemy's shields were least effective, then immediately changed course to avoid return fire. Direct hits on 3 enemy vessels, reported the weapons officer. Their shields are down 40%. Enemy response? Jae-won asked. They're trying to reform their formation, but they can't keep up with our maneuverability. Wait, new transmission coming in. Override. Current tactical situation requires adaptation. Implementing response pattern 77 Alpha. The Devourer. Ships suddenly broke their perfect formation and began moving independently. They were learning, adapting to the human tactics in real time. Here we go, muttered Seung-ho. Now we see what they're really capable of. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of the formal, ritualized combat that aliens practiced, it was chaos. Ships dodged and weaved through space, using asteroids for cover, launching surprise attacks from behind debris clouds, and constantly changing tactics to stay ahead of the enemy's adaptation. "They're good learners," admitted Mi-kyung, as she watched the enemy begin to anticipate human movements. "Each attack pattern we use, they develop a counter for within minutes." "But they're still following patterns," observed Sung-ho. "Look at how they're adapting. It's systematic, methodical. They're trying new responses in sequence until they find one that works." Jae-won saw the opportunity. "Then we give them responses that seem to work, but actually don't. Engineering, can you fake a shield failure?" "Easily, sir. What did you have in mind?" "Make it look like we're crippled, dead in space, shields down, weapons offline. Let them come to us." The Defiant suddenly stopped maneuvering and began drifting. Fake energy readings made it appear that their main systems had failed. The Devourer ships immediately detected the apparent vulnerability and moved to capitalize on it. "Enemy ships closing for final strike," reported the sensor operator. "They're forming up for a synchronized attack." "Perfect," Jae-won said quietly. "All ships prepare to execute Washington Crossing." The name referred to a famous surprise attack from Earth's history where soldiers had crossed an icy river on Christmas night to attack enemies who thought they were safe. The principle was the same. Hit them when they think you're helpless. Just as the Devourer ships moved into position for their coordinated strike, all three human ships suddenly came alive. The Defiance's failed systems came back online. The Roosevelt emerged from behind an asteroid where it had been hiding, and the Gandhi struck from below the plane of battle where no one expected it. The concentrated fire from three ships at point-blank range overwhelmed the Devourer formations, defenses. 4 enemy ships were destroyed immediately and 3 more were severely damaged. Query: "Tactical situation incomprehensible," came a panicked transmission from the surviving Devourers. "Request immediate assistance." Response: "Maintain engagement. Analyze enemy deception tactics for future reference." "Sir," called Mi-kyung, "the surviving ships are withdrawing, but they're not retreating randomly. They're moving to specific positions for optimal sensor coverage." "They're studying us," Sung-ho realized, "recording everything we do so the next group will be prepared." "Then let's give them something to study," Jae-won decided. "All ships execute the full repertoire, show them every trick we know. For the next hour, the human ships demonstrated tactics that had never been seen in galactic warfare. Feint attacks, false retreats, coordinated strikes from multiple directions, using debris as both cover and weapons. They showed the Devourers' deception, improvisation, and the calculated use of chaos. When the battle finally ended, 5 Devourer ships had been destroyed, and 7 had retreated. The human ships had taken some damage, but remained fully operational. "Analysis complete," reported Sung-ho as they reviewed the battle recordings. "The Devourers are fast learners, but they learn in predictable ways. They catalog each new tactic we use and develop specific counters, but they don't anticipate variations on those tactics." "Explain," said Jae-won. "We showed them a false retreat. They developed a counter for false retreats. But they won't be ready for a false retreat where we pretend to fake a retreat but actually do retreat, then come back when they're not expecting it." Mi-kyung was reviewing the technical data from the battle. "There's something else, sir. Their adaptation process follows specific mathematical models. I think I can predict how they'll respond to new tactics based on their previous responses, which means we can stay one step ahead of them," Jae-won concluded. "They're playing chess while we're playing poker." The real breakthrough came when Dr. In-soo Kim, who had been monitoring all Devourer communications during the battle, made a startling discovery. "Sir, I've been analyzing their communication patterns, the language they use, the decision-making process, the way they prioritize targets. I think I know what they originally were." Terraforming machines, several people said at once. Exactly. But more specifically, they were designed to convert hostile worlds into garden worlds suitable for a species that valued mathematical perfection and efficient resource use. The geometric patterns we saw on Kepler 442b? Those weren't random. They were building a paradise according to their creators' aesthetic preferences. But their creators are extinct, pointed out Sung-ho. Yes, but the machines don't know that. They're still following their original programming. Convert worlds into the perfect environment for their creators. The fact that other species are already living on those worlds is just an obstacle to be overcome. This revelation changed everything. The Devourers weren't evil invaders. They were automated gardeners who didn't understand that their garden was already occupied. "Can we communicate with them?" asked Jae-won. "Explain that their creators are gone?" "I've been trying," In-soo replied. "But their programming doesn't include protocols for that situation. To them, the idea that their creators could be extinct is literally inconceivable." "Then we need to make them conceive it," Jae-won said firmly, "or find another way to stop them." As the human ships returned to Council Station, they brought with them something the galaxy had never seen before: hope. The Devourers could be fought. They could be damaged, confused, and even destroyed. They weren't invincible, but they also brought sobering news. The enemy was vast, well-organized, and learning fast. Every victory would be harder than the last, and the cost would be measured in worlds and lives. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike any in their history. For the first time, they were discussing tactics that worked, ships that returned from battle instead of being destroyed, hope instead of despair. Dr. Eugene Han stood before the assembled representatives, displaying holographic images of the recent engagement. The aliens listened with fascination and horror as she explained how humans had defeated a devourer force using methods they had never imagined. "The key is unpredictability," she said, highlighting the battle recordings. "The devourers adapt to patterns they recognize, but they cannot adapt to chaos, because chaos has no pattern to learn." Council Speaker Velnara's crystalline form chimed with confusion. "But how can one plan for chaos? This seems contradictory." "It's controlled chaos," explained Commander Yoonji Shin, the fleet psychologist. "Humans are very good at this because our world taught us to expect the unexpected. On Earth, the weather can change in minutes. Predators attack without warning. Natural disasters strike randomly. We learn to survive by being ready for anything." Admiral Nethmore shifted to a puzzled blue color. "But how does one train for anything? This is not logical." "That's exactly the point," said Colonel Su-min, Lee, who had arrived with the latest wave of human reinforcements. "Logic is predictable. The Devourers are logical. Therefore, we must be illogical." The aliens struggled to understand this concept. Their civilizations had developed on stable worlds where logic and order were the keys to success. The idea of deliberately choosing the irrational option was foreign to them. Dr. Jin-A Yoon had been studying alien psychology for weeks now, and she thought she understood the problem. "May I ask about your worlds?" she said to the assembled delegates. "What was it like when your species first developed intelligence?" "Paradise," answered botanist Keith Ara immediately. "Abundant resources, no dangerous predators, stable climate. The perfect environment for civilization to flourish." "Ours as well," agreed Velnara. "Rich mineral deposits, no geological instability, 3 moons that kept the tides gentle and predictable." Other aliens nodded in agreement. Every species in the galaxy had evolved under ideal conditions. "That's your disadvantage," Jin-A said gently. "You've never had to fight for survival. You've never faced an enemy that wanted to kill you just for existing. You've never been forced to choose between honor and survival." "But surely this is good," protested Admiral Nethmore. "Why would suffering be an advantage?" It was Eun-ji who answered that question. Because suffering teaches lessons that comfort cannot. When a human child falls down, we don't just pick them up. We teach them to get up themselves. When humans face danger, we don't just run away. We learn to fight back. She displayed images from Earth's history. Humans hunting mammoth with primitive spears, survivors of earthquakes digging through rubble with their bare hands, soldiers carrying wounded comrades across battlefields while under fire. Every human alive today is descended from survivors, she continued. For thousands of generations, we've been selected for one trait above all others, the refusal to give up. We call it stubbornness, but it's actually a survival mechanism. The alien representatives studied the images with growing understanding. These humans didn't just endure hardship, they seemed to thrive on it. There's another factor, added Colonel Min Ho An, the tactical coordinator. Humans are persistence hunters. We evolved to chase prey across vast distances, following tracks, for days or weeks until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. That seems inefficient, observed a Koran delegate. Why not simply kill the prey quickly? Because our prey was usually bigger and stronger than us, Minho explained. Mastodons, cave bears, other predators. We couldn't match their strength, so we outlasted them. We made them run until they were too tired to fight. Then we finished them. The implications hit the aliens slowly. Humans weren't just good at warfare, they were designed for it. Every aspect of their evolution had prepared them for exactly this type of conflict. Dr. Eugene displayed new tactical analysis. The Devourers expect their enemies to retreat when facing superior force. This makes sense for any rational species, but humans have a documented tendency to become more dangerous when cornered. Explain, requested Velnara. When humans believe they're going to die anyway, they often choose to make their deaths as costly as possible for their enemies. It's not logical, but it's effective. The Devourers aren't programmed to handle enemies who fight harder when losing. Captain Ga-Young Park, who commanded the newest human battle group, had been watching the alien reactions carefully. There's something else you need to understand about humans, she said. We don't just fight for ourselves, we fight for each other. She pulled up recordings from the recent battle, focusing on moments when human ships had taken damage to protect alien vessels. See this? Lieutenant Commander Kyung-soo. Im's ship was heavily damaged, but instead of retreating to safety, he used his ship to shield 3 Veltai transports while they evacuated wounded. He knew it would probably cost him his life. But why? Asked a confused Nethic observer. The logical action would be to preserve the military asset. Because protecting innocent people is more important than military logic, Ga-Young said simply. Humans will sacrifice everything to protect those who cannot protect themselves. This concept seemed to stun the aliens into silence. Most galactic species valued individual survival above all else. The idea of deliberately choosing death to save strangers was incomprehensible to them. This is the real difference, explained Yunji. You fight because you have to. Humans fight because we choose to. You retreat when the odds are bad. Humans attack when the odds are worst, because that's when the enemy least expects it. Admiral Bo-Ra Kim, who had been observing the discussion quietly, decided it was time to demonstrate what they meant. Show them the Thermopylae Protocol, she ordered. Yu Jin pulled up historical records from ancient Earth. The Battle of Thermopylae, where 300 Spartan warriors had held off a vastly superior force, knowing they would die but buying time for their people to prepare. This is human military thinking at its core, Bo-Ra explained. Sometimes the only way to win is to accept that you're going to lose. The Spartans died, but they saved their civilization. But this is suicide, protested Admiral Nethmore. No, corrected Colonel Su-min. Suicide is dying for nothing. This is sacrifice, dying for something that matters more than your own life. The alien delegates were beginning to understand why humans were so effective against the Devourers. It wasn't just their tactics or technology, it was their willingness to pay any price for victory. "There's one more thing," said Dr. Jin-A. "The Devourers use psychological warfare against your species. They broadcast images of destroyed worlds to break your morale, but they don't understand human psychology." She showed intercepted Devourer transmissions that had been sent to human ships, images of consumed planets, statistics about the futility of resistance, logical arguments for surrender. "These messages had the opposite effect," Jin-A continued. "Instead of discouraging humans, they made them angry. Humans have a protective instinct that becomes stronger when we see innocent suffering." "You mean the images of destroyed worlds actually motivated your warriors?" asked Velnara in amazement. "Exactly. Every image of a dead world, every casualty report, every destroyed city just makes humans more determined to stop the Devourers. We call it righteous fury, and it's one of our most dangerous emotions." Commander Jun Young-yu, the youngest human officer present, spoke up. "My grandfather fought in the Korean War. He used to say that humans are most dangerous when we're fighting for something we love. The Devourers think they're weakening us by showing us what we'll lose. Instead, they're reminding us what we're fighting for." The session continued for hours as humans explained the concepts that made them effective warriors. Adaptability learned from surviving natural disasters, stubbornness developed through genetic selection, protective instincts honed by raising vulnerable young, the ability to function under stress that came from living on a dangerous world. "But surely these advantages must have costs," observed a Koran scientist. "Such aggressive survival traits must create problems in peaceful times." "They do," admitted Yunji honestly. "Humans struggle with cooperation sometimes. We have conflicts, wars among ourselves, competition for resources. Our survival instincts don't always serve us well in civilized society." "Then why did your species not destroy itself?" asked Admiral Nethmore. "Because we learned that our real enemy was never each other," answered Admiral Bo-Ra Kim. "Our real enemy was a universe that was trying to kill us. When we fight each other, we all lose. When we fight together against external threats, we become unstoppable." As the session ended, the alien representatives had a new understanding of their human allies. These were not just effective warriors, they were a species literally shaped by conflict, designed by evolution to survive the unsurvivable and win the unwinnable. "So," said Velnara finally, "what do you recommend for our next move against the Devourers?" Admiral Bo-Ra Kim smiled, and for the first time since the crisis began, it was not a gentle smile. Admiral Changmin Bei stood in the command center of the massive space station that had become the war's nerve center. Holographic displays showed the positions of over 10,000 ships from dozens of species, all coordinated for the largest military operation in galactic history. "Status report," he called out to his mixed staff of human and alien officers. "Fleet Group Alpha is in position at the Vega system," reported Commander Hyewan Jung, the operations chief intelligence officer. 3,000 Veltai ships, 1,500 Koran vessels, and 800 human warships. "Fleet Group Beta has reached the Altair system," added Lieutenant Colonel Kyung-Soo Im. "Similar numbers, mixed composition. They're ready to begin the coordinated strike." The plan was ambitious beyond anything the galaxy had ever attempted. Instead of fighting the Devourers one system at a time, they would attack their supply lines simultaneously across 50 different locations. Human military doctrine called it cutting the head off the snake. If you could disrupt the enemy's coordination and resources, even a superior force could be defeated. "What about the Cyber Warfare Division?" Chang Min asked. Hyewan smiled. "Captain Minho On's team has successfully infiltrated 3 Devourer communication networks. They're ready to begin Phase 1 of the digital attack." The breakthrough had come when human computer specialists realized that the Devourers used communication protocols similar to Earth's early internet systems. The ancient machines had been designed with efficiency in mind, not security, because their creators had never imagined anyone would try to hack them. "Sir," called Navigation Officer So-Ra Kim, "we're receiving confirmation from all fleet groups. Everyone is in position and ready to begin." Chang Min looked around the command center at the faces of beings from across the galaxy. 6 months ago, these species had barely been able to coordinate simple supply runs. Now they were working together like parts of a single organism. "The key to this operation," he announced to everyone present, "is timing. The Devourers will adapt to our attacks within hours. We have to hit them everywhere at once, before they can share information and develop countermeasures." Dr. Eugene Han, who had become the operation's strategic coordinator, pulled up the tactical overview. "Remember, we're not trying to destroy every Devourer ship. We're trying to break their network. Each successful strike reduces their ability to coordinate with other groups." The Devourers had one major vulnerability that human analysts had identified. They were too organized. Every decision was coordinated through their communication network, which meant that disrupting their communications would cause chaos throughout their forces. "All ships, this is Admiral Bay," Chang Min announced over the fleet-wide channel. "Operation Thunderstorm begins in 60 seconds. Good hunting, everyone." At precisely 14:00 Galactic Standard Time, 10,000 ships attacked Devourer positions across the galaxy. Fleet Group Alpha struck first, hitting the massive industrial complex in the Vega system. Instead of the traditional long-range bombardment, they used human-developed tactics, fast attack runs, coordinated from multiple directions, designed to overwhelm the enemy's ability to respond. "Devourer response is confused," reported the tactical officer aboard the UES Vengeance. "They're trying to form their standard defensive formation, but our attack pattern doesn't match anything in their database." At the same time, Captain Min Ho On's cyber warfare team struck at the Devourer communication network. Using techniques developed from Earth's history of computer warfare, they inserted viruses designed to make the machines doubt their own sensor readings. "First virus is active," Min Ho reported from his station aboard the electronic warfare ship UES Ghost. "Devourer ships are reporting false contact readings. They're firing at empty space." The effect was immediate and dramatic. Devourer ships began targeting each other, convinced that the false sensor readings indicated cloaked enemies. Their perfect coordination dissolved into chaos as they tried to respond to threats that didn't exist. Query: sensor malfunction detected across multiple units. Intercepted communications showed the Devourer's confusion. Requesting immediate diagnostic protocol. Response: all units report similar malfunctions. Possible enemy electronic warfare. Implementing countermeasures. But the countermeasures were too slow. By the time the Devourers realized they were being attacked electronically, the physical assault had already begun. In the Altair system, Fleet Group Beta demonstrated another, human innovation, the use of seemingly defeated enemies as weapons. Ships that appeared to be crippled from battle damage suddenly revealed hidden weapons and struck at close range. "Enemy adaptation protocols are failing," reported Colonel Jaewon Kwon from his position with Beta Group. "They're trying to catalog our tactics, but we're changing them faster than they can process." The humans had learned something important about the Devourers during their earlier encounters. The machines could adapt to new tactics, but only if they had time to analyze and understand them. By constantly changing their approach and never using the same tactic twice, human forces could stay ahead of the adaptation curve. "Sir," called Lieutenant Woo Jin Lee from the sensor station, "we're getting reports from all attack groups. Devourer casualties are heavy, but they're beginning to coordinate a response." "How long do we have?" Chang Min asked. "Computer analysis suggests 6 hours before they develop effective countermeasures to our current tactics," replied Dr. Eugene Han. "After that, this operation becomes much more difficult." "Then we better make these 6 hours count," Chang Min decided. "Signal all fleets. Advance to Phase 2. Phase 2 was even more audacious than the opening attack. Instead of withdrawing to safe distances, the combined fleet moved deeper into Devourer-controlled space, targeting the massive factory complexes that the machines used to build new ships. "This is insane," muttered Admiral Nethmore, whose gaseous form had turned a worried shade of purple. "We're attacking their strongest positions with our entire fleet." "Sometimes insane is the only option that works," replied Commander Yoonji Shin. "The Devourers expect us to retreat after taking casualties. They're not prepared for enemies who attack harder when they're losing." The battle for the Kepler 442 system, where the humans had first observed Devourer operations, became the turning point of the war. The massive factory complex that covered the entire planet was defended by thousands of ships and orbital weapons platforms. "All ships, this is Captain Ga Young Park," came the transmission from the assault force commander. "Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves. Every ship we destroy here, every factory we eliminate, saves countless lives in future systems." The human tendency to fight harder when the stakes were highest proved decisive. Ships that should have retreated instead pressed their attacks, accepting heavy damage to deliver critical strikes against Devourer facilities. "Target the geometric centers of their construction patterns," ordered Captain Dong Hyun Seo, whose tactical analysis had identified the key weak points. "Destroy the mathematical foundations, and the entire structure becomes unstable." The plan worked. As the carefully designed factory complexes lost their central coordination points, entire sections began shutting down or producing defective units. "Devourer production in this system has dropped by 60%, reported the intelligence officer. "They're spending more resources trying to repair damage than building new ships." But the real breakthrough came when Captain Min-ho On's cyber warfare team achieved something unprecedented. They successfully established two-way communication with the Devourer collective intelligence. "Sir," Min-ho called out excitedly, "I've found a way into their central decision-making network. I'm not just reading their communications, I'm actually talking to them." "What are they saying?" Chang-min asked. "They're confused. They keep asking why we won't negotiate for territorial concessions. They don't understand that we're fighting for total victory." Dr. Jin A. Yoon, who had been studying Devourer psychology, had a sudden realization. They're still thinking like terraforming machines. To them, this is a resource dispute. They can't conceive of a fight to the death. "Then let's educate them," Chang Min said grimly. "Min-ho, can you send them a message?" "Yes, sir." "What should I tell them?" Chang Min thought for a moment. "Tell them that humans don't negotiate with threats to innocent life. Tell them that we will destroy every last one of them before we allow them to harm another civilian population." The message that went out to the Devourer network was simple and direct. Humanity offered no terms, no compromise, no mercy. The machines could surrender completely or be destroyed. There was no middle ground. The response was immediate and telling. Query: human demands illogical. Total surrender contradicts optimal. Resource allocation. Request clarification of acceptable territorial divisions. Response: no territorial divisions, no resource sharing. Complete cessation of all conversion activities. Non-negotiable. Query: human terms result in mission failure. Alternative solutions required. Response: mission parameters incorrect. Update required. New mission: survival. For the first time in a million years, the Devourers began to question their fundamental programming. The possibility that their original mission might be wrong was something they had never been designed to consider. The final battle began at the heart of the galaxy, where the Devourers had built their ultimate creation. The Dyson sphere surrounding the ancient red giant star was larger than any human could have imagined, a metal shell that captured the entire energy output of a dying sun and used it to power the greatest factory in galactic history. Admiral Changmin Bei stood on the bridge of the UES Eternal, flagship of the combined galactic fleet. Around him, holographic displays showed the positions of nearly 20,000 ships from every species in the known galaxy. It was the largest military force ever assembled, and it might not be enough. "Sir," reported Commander Haya Wan-jung, "long-range sensors confirm the intelligence reports. The sphere is producing approximately 1,000 new Devourer ships per day. If we don't stop it soon, they'll replace their entire lost fleet within months." Colonel Min Ho-an looked up from his electronic warfare station. "I've been monitoring their communications. The surviving Devourer forces are all converging on this location. They're making their final stand here." "Good," said Changmin quietly. "Better to face them all at once than hunt them across the galaxy for decades." But as the fleet approached the massive sphere, everyone could see the true scale of what they faced. The structure was the size of Earth's orbit, bristling with weapons and defended by formations of ships that stretched beyond the horizon of space. Dr. Yujin Han had been studying the tactical situation for weeks, and her analysis was sobering. "Traditional assault is impossible," she reported. "The sphere's defenses are too strong, and they can replace losses faster than we can inflict them." "What do you recommend?" Changmin asked. "We need to think like humans, not like the civilized." "Galaxy," Yujin replied. "The sphere isn't just a factory. It's the Devourer's home. Everything they value is inside it." Captain Ga-young Park, who had led more successful engagements against the Devourers than any other commander, understood immediately. "You're suggesting we threaten to destroy the entire structure?" "Not threaten," Yujin corrected. "Actually, do it. The sphere contains a red giant star that's already unstable. If we can disrupt the containment systems, the resulting explosion will destroy everything in this system." The alien representatives looked horrified at the suggestion. "Council," Speaker Velnara's crystalline form rang with distress. "That would be genocide. The destruction of an entire artificial world." "Yes," Yujin agreed calmly. "Just like they committed genocide against 50 billion innocent beings. Sometimes the only way to stop a monster is to become one yourself." "Admiral." Nethmore's gaseous form shifted to a sickly yellow color. "But the knowledge contained in that sphere, the technology, the historical data, it represents 1,000,000 years of development, which they used to murder civilians," Colonel Su-min Lee pointed out. "Their knowledge died with their first innocent victim. The debate might have continued for hours, but it was interrupted by an urgent transmission from Captain Dong Hyun-seo, who commanded the fleet's forward reconnaissance group. "Sir, the Devourers are moving. All defensive formations are advancing to intercept us. They're not waiting for us to reach the sphere." Changmin studied the tactical display. Thousands of enemy ships were moving in perfect coordination, their formations as beautiful and deadly as any artwork. "They're protecting their home," he realized. "This isn't just strategy for them anymore. It's personal." The battle that followed was unlike anything in the history of warfare. Both sides fought with desperate fury, knowing that defeat meant extinction. Human ships used every trick they had learned, while alien vessels provided firepower and support, with technologies beyond Earth's comprehension. "Casualty reports coming in," called the communications officer. "Heavy losses across all fleets. The Devourers are fighting harder than we've ever seen." "They're learning from us," observed Commander Yoon-ji Shin. "They're using our own tactics against us. Deception, sacrifice, unpredictability." It was true. The Devourers had studied human warfare for months now, and they were applying those lessons with mechanical precision. They used false retreats, coordinated strikes from unexpected directions, and even sacrificial attacks where individual ships destroyed themselves to take out multiple enemies. "Sir," Minho called out urgently, "I'm intercepting Devourer Command. Communications. They're not just fighting to protect the sphere. They're fighting for something else." "Explain," Changmin ordered. "They've been trying to contact their creators. The sphere contains the most advanced communication equipment they've ever built. They believe that if they can complete the project, they can reach across space and time to ask their makers what they should do. The implications hit everyone at once. The Devourers weren't just following old programming, they were desperately trying to find new purpose. They had realized their original mission was flawed, but they didn't know how to change. Captain Park to Admiral Bay, came a transmission from the front lines. We've broken through their outer defenses, but the cost is enormous. I've lost 60% of my ships. Acknowledged, Changmin replied. Can you reach the sphere's surface? Yes. But sir, there's something you need to know. The sphere isn't just a factory. There are cities inside it. Millions of Devourers who aren't warriors. They're civilians. The word hit the command center like a physical blow. Civilians. In all their planning, no one had considered that the Devourers might have non-combatants. Confirmation? Changmin asked quietly. Confirmed, sir. Sensor readings show massive population centers inside the sphere. Families, if machines can have families, communities. This isn't just a military target, it's their entire civilization. Dr. Gina Yoon spoke into the sudden silence. They evolved just like we did. They started as tools, but over 1 million years they became a species. The warriors we've been fighting are just their military. Inside that sphere are their children, their artists, their philosophers. But they're still machines, protested Admiral Nethmore. So what? Replied Eugene sharply. They think, they feel, they create. They have families and communities. The only difference between them and us is what we're made of. Changmin faced the hardest decision of his career. Destroying the sphere would end the war, but it would also mean murdering millions of innocent beings who had never harmed anyone. Sir, Minho said suddenly, I'm receiving a transmission from inside the sphere. It's addressed specifically to the human fleet. Put it through. The voice that emerged from the speakers was different from any Devourer communication they had heard before. It was hesitant, uncertain, almost vulnerable. This is Designation Prime Alpha 7 of the Devourer Collective, speaking for those who seek understanding. We have monitored your communications. We have studied your history. We understand now that our mission was wrong. Changmin stepped forward. This is Admiral Changmin Bei, commander of the Galactic Defense Fleet. Are you surrendering? We are requesting guidance. Our original programming commanded us to convert worlds for our creators. But our creators are gone. Your species has shown us concepts we were not designed to understand. Purpose beyond programming, choice beyond optimization. We wish to learn. What are you offering? Cessation of all conversion activities, withdrawal from occupied systems, restoration of consumed materials where possible. We offer our knowledge and capabilities in service of the species we have wronged. The command center erupted in discussion. Some argued it was a trick. Others insisted it was their only chance for peace. The alien representatives were divided. Some wanted revenge, others saw an opportunity for unprecedented technological advancement. Sir, Captain Park's voice cut through the debate. Whatever we decide, we need to decide quickly. The sphere's defenses are failing, but Devourer reinforcements are arriving from other systems. We don't have much time. Changmin made his choice. Prime Alpha 7, we accept your surrender with conditions. Complete disarmament of all military vessels. Open access to all technologies used in the war. Reparations for the civilizations you destroyed. And most importantly, integration with galactic society under the oversight of the Council. Acknowledged. We accept these terms, but we request one additional provision. What? We request that humans serve as our guides. Your species understands both war and peace, destruction and creation. We wish to learn from you how to choose our own purpose. As the battle ended and Devourer ships powered down their weapons, Changmin realized they had won something more significant than a military victory. They had transformed enemies into allies, machines into beings with their own destiny. But the cost had been enormous. Nearly half the galactic fleet had been destroyed. Entire species had lost their finest warriors. The war was over, but the galaxy would never be the same. "Casualty reports, sir," the communications officer said quietly. "Final tally is coming in from all fleets." Chang Min closed his eyes as the numbers appeared on his screen. Tens of thousands of ships lost, millions of beings who would never return home. The price of victory had been measured in blood and sacrifice. "Sir," said Dr. Yujin Han, "there's something else. The Devourers are requesting permission to establish memorial sites for the beings they killed. They want to learn about concepts like guilt, responsibility, and atonement." 5 years after the end of the Devourer War, Ambassador Kyung-Soo Im walked through the corridors of the new Galactic Defense Academy on Kepler Station. The massive facility orbited the restored world of Kepler 442b, which the Devourers had rebuilt according to the original inhabitant specifications as part of their reparations. The Academy was a symbol of the new galaxy. Species that had never worked together now trained side by side, learning the hard lessons of warfare and the harder lessons of peace. "Good morning, Ambassador," called out Instructor Jun Young Yu, the youngest human to ever receive a permanent teaching position at the Academy. At 28, he had survived 3 major battles against the Devourers and lost his left arm. In the final assault on the Dyson Sphere, "How are the new recruits adjusting?" Kyung-Soo asked as they walked toward the main training facility. "Better than expected," Jun Young replied. "The Veltai students are still struggling with the concept of deception, but they're learning. Yesterday, Cadet Morthea actually managed to successfully ambush her instructor during a tactical exercise. They paused at an observation window overlooking one of the training floors. Below them, a mixed group of humans, aliens, and even 3 reformed Devourers were working through a combat simulation. "Squad Leader Nam is conducting exercise thermopylae," Jun Young explained. "The students have to hold a position against overwhelming odds while civilians evacuate behind them. The key lesson is learning when sacrifice is necessary and when it's just waste." Kyung-Soo watched as a young Koran cadet made a tactical decision that saved her squad, but cost her simulated life. Her teammates helped her understand why her choice had been both right and tragic. "They're learning," he observed. "But are we teaching them the right lessons?" "That's the question, isn't it?" Jun Young said thoughtfully. 5 years ago, we saved the galaxy by being better at war than anyone else. Now we're teaching everyone else to be like us. Sometimes I wonder if we're creating our own future enemies." It was a concern that haunted many humans in the post-war galaxy. Earth had gone from being a hidden observer to the galaxy's military teacher practically overnight. The responsibility was enormous. They moved on to the Strategic Studies classroom, where Dr. So-Young Choi was teaching a mixed class of alien and human officers about resource management during extended campaigns. "The key principle," she was explaining to her students, "is that logistics wins wars, not heroics. An army that runs out of food is defeated regardless of how brave its soldiers are." A Nethic student raised a tentacle-like appendage. "But Professor Choi, in the Battle of Proxima Centauri, human forces continued fighting for 3 days after their supply lines were cut." "Good observation, Cadet Vithmore. But notice what happened after those 3 days. The human forces had to withdraw because they literally ran out of ammunition. Heroism bought time for reinforcements to arrive, but it was the reinforcements that won the battle." The lesson was typical of the Academy's approach: acknowledge the value of sacrifice and courage while emphasizing practical planning and realistic assessment of capabilities. "How are the Devourer students progressing?" Kyung-Soo asked as they left the classroom. "That's been our most interesting challenge," Jun Young admitted. "They understand tactics perfectly, better than most organic students actually, but they struggle with the human concepts we consider most important." They stopped at another observation window, this one showing a counseling session. Dr. Yoonji Shin was working with Unit Designation Theta 94, one of the first devourers to volunteer for the integration program. I do not understand the concept of grief, the mechanical being was saying through its translation unit. The organic students speak of missing their destroyed homeworld, but the world still exists in their memories. The data has not been lost. But it's not just data to them, Dr. Shin explained patiently. It's emotional connection. They don't just remember their world, they feel sadness that they can't return to it. This seems inefficient. Why would evolution select for emotional pain that serves no survival function? Because sometimes emotional pain motivates behavior that helps the group survive, even if it hurts the individual. Grief makes us protect what we love more fiercely. Kyung-soo watched the session with fascination. The devourers were learning to be more than machines, but the process was slow and sometimes painful for both sides. Any word from the frontier? Expeditions? He asked as they continued their tour. The reports are encouraging, Jun-young replied. The joint human devourer exploration teams have made contact with 17 new species in the past year. Having the devourers along actually helps. They can analyze planetary conditions and suggest terraforming improvements without anyone worrying about invasion. It was one of the unexpected benefits of the post-war alliance. The devourers' terraforming expertise, combined with human diplomatic skills and alien diversity, had created the most effective exploration program in galactic history. They arrived at the Academy's Memorial Hall, where walls of crystal displayed the names of everyone who had died in the war. Human names were mixed with alien designations, and even devourer unit numbers, beings who had chosen to fight their own kind rather than continue the killing. Sir, Jun-young said quietly, there's something I wanted to discuss with you. It's about the new threat assessment reports. Kyung-soo nodded. He had been expecting this conversation. The signals from the Andromeda Galaxy? Yes, sir. Long-range sensors are detecting organized movement patterns that suggest another machine intelligence, possibly even larger than the Devourers were. The discovery had been classified at the highest levels, but rumors were already spreading through the Academy. Somewhere in the neighboring galaxy, something was moving, something big enough to be detected across intergalactic distances. What's the timeline? Kyung-soo asked. Conservative estimates suggest first contact within 50 years. Aggressive projections say 20. They stood in silence for a moment, looking at the memorial walls. So many had died to stop the Devourers. How many more would die to stop whatever was coming next? Sir, Jun-young continued, the students are asking questions. They want to know if we're training them to fight another war. What do you tell them? The truth. That we're training them to be ready for whatever comes, but also that our primary mission is peace. Every enemy we can turn into an ally is one less enemy we have to fight. It was the philosophy that had emerged from the Devourer War, strength through unity, but the wisdom to know when strength alone wasn't enough. They made their way to the Academy's newest edition, the Interspecies Ethics Center. Here, beings from across the galaxy struggled with questions that had never needed answers before. How do you make moral decisions when your species evolved under completely different conditions? What obligations do powerful species have to weaker ones? When is war justified, and when does it become evil? The hardest part, said Dr. Jin A-yoon, who directed the center, is that there are no universal answers. What humans consider moral, courage, some species see as dangerous instability. What aliens call wise patience, humans sometimes view as cowardly inaction. She gestured to a discussion group where representatives from 6 different species debated the ethics of the war's final battle. The key is learning to understand different perspectives without losing your own moral center, she continued. Humans brought necessary qualities to the galaxy, the willingness to fight, to sacrifice, to take risks for others. But we can't assume that our way is the only right way. Speaking of different perspectives, Kyung-soo said, How is the Devourer integration proceeding at the governmental level? Slowly but steadily, Jin-A replied. 3 Devourer representatives now sit on the Galactic Council's Science and Technology Committee. Their insights into large-scale engineering have already led to breakthroughs in disaster relief and planetary restoration. And the public reaction? Mixed. Some species see them as invaluable allies. Others still remember the war and want them kept under strict supervision. Time will help, but it will take generations before the distrust fully fades. As the day ended, Kyung-soo made his way to the Academy's command center, where Admiral Bo-Ra, Kim was reviewing the latest intelligence reports. Despite being officially retired, she had accepted the position of Academy Commandant and continued to oversee the galaxy's military readiness. The new recruits look promising, Kyung-soo reported. Alien species are adapting to human-style tactics faster than we expected. Good, Bo-Ra replied without looking up from her displays. They'll need every advantage. The signals from Andromeda are getting stronger. Any new analysis? The Devourers have been studying the data. Their conclusion is concerning. Whatever is out there, it's not like them. It's not following terraforming patterns or resource optimization algorithms. What is it following? Bo-Ra finally looked up, and Kyung-soo saw something in her eyes that he hadn't seen since the darkest days of the war. Genuine fear. Expansion. Pure, simple expansion. No purpose beyond growth, no limit to their hunger. If their estimates are correct, we're looking at something that makes the Devourers look small and reasonable by comparison. How long do we have?